Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Tuesday, it's June 7th. This will be our chart lesson, and another fairly quiet day today. It was all uphill today, really, until right into the 2 o'clock hour, and then things reversed and turned down. Really, for all intents and purposes, this is kind of a range day. You can see where prices closed here yesterday. And even though we had a big move up in the overnight, we took most of it back just before the open, and then we closed up. Maybe we might have closed up 2 points at the most for the day. So you could really call this a range type day. But we had a nice trend working up. It was pretty obvious, and if you just bought those pullbacks to the trend line, it's a pretty good day. So want to back out, we'll talk about the trades, and won't take long today. Volatility's really slowed for the summer, so not much we can do about it. Um, but we got a little channel moving down here. We get a close outside. This one was hard to tell. I mean, there's different ways you could draw this, but I confirmed it off this low by using those closes and drug it up. And if you do that, you get a close outside here. Um, really, by the time I came in, we were, you notice how long we'd been away from the EMA there, really since just after 6 o'clock until 8:30 almost. So that was the first real opportunity. I wouldn't take this short that well far away from the EMA because we're going to snap back pretty quickly. But you can see there's a little bit of a double bottom, and you could almost treat that like a failed break lower. It's a good way away from the EMA. There was a close outside and a couple of legs down. It does come back and test the breakout area here from early in the overnight yesterday, or early yesterday afternoon. It's still the overnight market. All this in the blue. You can see the line here from where the market closed and reopened yesterday. So all that in the blue is considered your overnight. This is your regular session open where it turns white, and where it turns blue here is the 2 o'clock hour. I don't use the close. I use the 2 o'clock because I don't like to trade after 2 o'clock. So I set mine to turn blue at 2 o'clock. So, but anyway, um, this was a little bit of aggressive trade. Being that far away from the EMA, we're overdue to snap back. And if you did see this shorter term channel and the close outside and the move down here, again, it's definitely green. It's not even a great signal bar, but you got those three matching lows. And what I would do is let it break above that and maybe drop a limit order in there. So you got a real low risk couple of 3 ticks and see if you can't ride it back. I wouldn't make that one blue. But notice that sets the trend line. You draw that trend line off there, and when this pulls back and tests it again, that confirms the trend line. There's a double, almost triple bottom here, and you get a little failed break below that. First you had a little failed break out, but I wouldn't go short there. Um, Not with this possible trend line and that being right into it. And when it holds there, this is not a great signal bar. Technically it's a first entry, but it's still 2 legs back to the trend line, and this kind of confirms it. And really you could treat that like a failed break lower below that little double triple bottom area right there. A lot of times people can't see it without the line, but you can see that line there and a little drop below. I like going long there, just basically because it confirms that trend line. It pulls back again here. It doesn't quite make a new high. It makes a double top and pulls back. So this is technically a second entry here. It's not a real bullish bar though, and the fact that we didn't make a new high and go to the upper side here and we're already coming back to the other side, it made me question it. Um, If you want to be aggressive, you can enter there, but you're better off to wait. When it turns back down and bounces right off that line again and gives you that bullish bar, go long right there. Just put your stop right there. Actually, it went lower first and then went out the other side on my chart, so you could have entered right here, or you could have let it break above that one, drop a limit order in. But sometimes you miss those trades by being too conservative, so you got to weigh those options. But this turns out to be a really good trade. And then notice how it turns back down right here. This is technically a failed second entry short, breakout pullback long, but you're right into that upper side of the channel. And I wasn't sure if this was going to be the upper side or not because it feels like it ought to be higher. But you can see it held all day long. So, you know, as long as it's holding and working, you don't argue with it. You gotta go with it until prices prove something different. This is a double test. Notice you tested it once, tested it again, and it held and bounced. So then I like going long right there, and that is a second entry. You could treat that like a failed second entry short as well. But basically it's the double test rule, and that was a quick, easy move. If it would have turned down again here and broke lower and then went back up, I would have said add on, but it didn't do that. So I wouldn't add on in that situation there. And then, of course, it works back from the upper side right back down to the trend line again. Notice you get a close outside. It tries to go lower once, tries to go lower twice, and nothing can close below that trend line. We're probably going higher. The only reason I made this one green is because you got all that overlap. You're just stacked up sideways. But you can see the closes holding above that line. That's a pretty good sign. And what you might do is let it break higher, drop a limit order in there. There's still plenty of room before you get here to this high. And it's probably going to go all the way to the other side of the channel, most likely. So this one is real borderline being blue. The only reason I made it green is because it's a first entry, first of all, and then you got all that congestion right there. But what happened is prices are kind of stuck between the EMA and the trend line. And another thing you got to be concerned about is we're coming back here. We had a little bit of an overshoot here, so you could get that break here. So that's another reason that one's a little bit aggressive. But it holds, and I like entering there if you want to be aggressive. And then you get a nice second entry here. Notice the new high, pullback first entry, pullback second entry. Again, you've got all those matching lows and a little failed break. It comes right back to the trend line, touches it, and then it turns up. So when it broke above these two matching highs, that's a second entry long. And there's also a little failed break lower there. So that's a nice setup right there. You definitely want to take that one. And then you pull back, you can get another second entry here. This is very similar to this one. It's a second entry. You had to be a little concerned about that overlap right there. I went back and forth about whether or not to make that one green. But at this point, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't expect it to try to test that high again. You might have used the limit order. It didn't matter. You had just enough to get out either way. That really gets you into the 2 o'clock hour. However, you could treat this like a failed second entry long. And look how bearish that bar is. It broke out the top turn and closed on its very low. That's a good sign that we're probably going to make another leg. So you're probably going to get at least 2 legs here. And if you measure this one, you're looking for prices to come to at least right there. And you notice how they started getting a little support right there. It ended up pushing on through, but you can see there's plenty of room to get out there. So if you want to be a little more aggressive, and this one is borderline red as well, but this has been an uptrend, and this is the first close below, and we didn't get a new high yet. So you had to be concerned about that. So for that reason, I did make it green. Plus, it's really close to 2 o'clock, and you can't afford to screw up late in the day. So, so that's the reason that one's green. But I know some of you'd want to take that trade. Again, it is slightly aggressive. So, but not a lot of trades today. So there's a couple of really good ones. If you just waited till it came back to the trend, once you had this trend line confirmed, which even if you didn't get it early off these first two, you should have had it by these. So every time it came back, if you just bought, you had a nice trade. So not much else you can say about today, so I'm not going to beat around the bush and drag this out. Hadn't been on my soapbox in a long time, so since we got a couple of minutes, maybe I'll talk about that. But every so often I get these emails, and I've gotten a couple of them lately about, does this really work? Do you know anybody that's done this? That, I can't find anybody that's ever been able to make trading work or whatever. And this is not, I'll say this again, this is not easy. If trading was easy as everybody thought it was, everybody would be a day trader. It's not easy. This, trying to master this is like trying to master anything that's really, really skilled and really, really difficult. Um, Not everybody can be a painter. So my guess is not everybody has the skill set to be a trader. Although I think this is a learnable skill. You don't really have to have the talent that a painter would have to see. Um, but it is similar. So, maybe some people truly will never be able to do this, but generally it's not because they don't have the skills, because they don't take the time to understand how hard it is to learn the skill and to actually get the screen time. And, just to put it into perspective, I got maybe 12 years of sitting here all day long at the screen looking at this thing. Think about that. And you come in and you do it for a few months, you think you're going to see what I see? No. And that's not because I'm any better than you, but it's just a skill that I've got a lot of thousands of hours of doing year after year after year. And, some of you come in here and you look at the chart 2 or 3 hours, 3 days a week, and you do that for a year, and you think you can't understand why you haven't learned it. But you don't have the only thing I can say is that your expectations are not realistic if you think you're going to be able to do that. You need to be thinking in terms of years, not weeks. Certain, excuse me there, I need to get a drink of water, but certainly not in weeks, and most likely not even in months. You need to be thinking in terms of years. And if you're thinking any other way, you're just fooling yourself. So this is a skill. It's a learnable skill, but it is a difficult skill. And it's, another, thing that I like to compare it to is being a jet fighter. It's hard enough to learn to fly a jet, but imagine trying to learn to fly a jet while a jet fighter, and the whole time you're trying to learn, somebody's trying to shoot you down. Somebody that's very skilled and already understands how to fly and has combat experience is trying to shoot you down while you're trying to learn. That's a good comparison, because the whole time you're on here trying to learn, you can't afford a mistake, because if you do, somebody that's skilled at it is going to come along and take your money every single time. And I call people that come in here and try to trade live too early, we call them donators. Don't be a donator, because if you trade live too soon, which is always going to be way before you think it is, you're just going to be a donator. Of course, we need donators because this is a zero sum game. I can't make a dollar unless somebody loses a dollar. So for every dollar made, somebody has to lose a dollar. Think about that for a minute, and that ought to tell you how difficult it is. And so it's not easy. So I haven't talked about that in a while, so I just want to remind people that this is not something you can walk in here and do in a few months, and probably not even in a year or two. It's probably going to take longer than that. If you want to be a medical doctor, do you think you're going to do that in a year or two? No, it takes at least 8 to 10 years of school. Then you have to do your residency. Then, and then you have to build your practice. It's 12 or 15 years before you really start to make any money. But once you start to make money, it comes in, you get paid well. Same thing as a trader. It takes a long time to start to make money. But once the money starts to come, it pays really well. But it doesn't come nearly as quick as everybody wants it to or expects it to. And, most of what you read out there and learn is wrong. 100% wrong. Even books that are written on this stuff that seem like are written by people that seem like they ought to know what they're talking about, it's wrong. And, I just say that. And so anyway, I hadn't talked about that in a while. We were done early, so I thought I would bring that back up. But just make sure your expectations are realistic and be prepared for a lot of hard work. And the key to this whole thing is not just coming on here and trading every day and then stopping. That's the real work starts after your trading day. Um, when I first started doing this, I spent hours and hours at the end of every day. I'd sit all here all day and look at the screen and trade, and then I'd spend another 3 hours at night studying my chart. And then on weekends, I'd spend all day studying charts on the weekend. And it took me a long time, a couple of years. So expect that it's going to take you the same or more. But think about how much time I put in. So if you're just coming in here trading every day and then calling it quits and then wondering why you're not getting any better, that's the reason. The key to getting better at this is to come in here and trade, get on the simulator, trade all day long, and then at the end of the day, put your trades on here and go back and study every one of them. And then when you get through studying your trades, study the whole chart. Look for where, that's how I learned all this stuff. If you look at it, and you always see, where do the best moves happen? Where do all these great moves come from? They're coming off this blue line working up here. I wonder why that is. That's a key entry point. It's what I call a key entry point. Every time prices came back to that trend line, there was a good trade. That's where there's a big move from here. There's a nice move from here. Another big move from here. Big move from here. Big move from here. That's because this is the support area. All this trend line is an angled support and resistance area. This is the resistance on the upper side. We might as well change this to blue now. I had it brown earlier because I wasn't sure if it was right yet or not, but now I know it was correct. So we'll change it back to blue. So this is your resistance area. This is your support area. And they're just angled. They're no different than these flat ones. These flat ones are support areas all the way across there. And then you can find the flat ones off the upper side as well. So you got to learn to find these trend lines because that's your key entry points, because that's where your support and resistance is happening. And eventually it doesn't hold any longer and prices turn down. Generally you'll get a retest of the high. It didn't happen today. So this is probably more of a range day, and we hit the resistance up here. And it turned and it went down to the low side. And where did it finally find support? Right down there where it found support this morning. Look, you can see that black line coming across there. And that's where it found support. And that's what you expect to happen. And once you see this every day, you start to learn this stuff. And if you notice, there's a trend line. The trend really starts down right there. So where do all the big moves happen on the way down? Right off that trend line. That's your key support, your key entry point. That's your support and resistance working right down through there. You can see that every time we came back to that line, there was a great entry. So learn to see this stuff. Learn to find these trend lines. I generally will start off the first couple of swings. In this case, we were working up, and the downtrend didn't really start till these two swings. And that could be a short-term one. There may actually be a larger-term trend channel working off that high right there, but we never got back to it. And it looks like there probably is with a midline right through here somewhere. Put this a little higher because these have to be equal distance in here. If they're not, then your channel's not right. But it looks like there's a midline right through there. And so it looks like a valid channel working lower. And this is the one I would have been looking at, the shorter term one. So I hope that's helpful. I'm going to wrap it up. We're back up to 20 minutes. I added another 10 minutes to it there almost. So, but that's good stuff and stuff I don't talk about enough probably. So anyway, hopefully it's helpful to somebody. But I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.